I never should have let him stay the night. But I did. And now, everything's different. It was supposed to be a normal weekend. My son, Ethan, invited his best friend, Liam, to sleep over, just like he'd done so many times before. They'd grown up together. Liam practically lived at our house. But that night, that one stormy night, I was just about to turn off the lights and head to bed when I heard a soft knock at my bedroom door. It was nearly 2 a.m. When I opened it, I saw him. Liam. He was shirtless, barefoot, and slightly damp, as if he'd stepped outside moments earlier. His voice was quiet, shaky almost. "The air mattress popped," he said. "It's completely flat?" I didn't want to bother Ethan. He looked at me, eyes unsure. Could I just crash here for a while? I hesitated. Every fiber in my body told me to say no. But instead, I nodded. And he stepped inside. He didn't speak after that. Just lay down on the far edge of my bed and pulled the blanket around him. Back turned. Still. I lay beside him, wide awake, pretending to sleep. Then I heard it. 3 words. Soft, almost whispered. "You smell good." My breath caught. And I froze. That was the moment everything changed. My name is Dean. I'm 38 years old, recently divorced, and raising my 17-year-old son Ethan on my own. After the split, I stopped thinking about romance. My focus became survival, pay the bills, get Ethan through high school, and keep the house from falling apart. Then there was Liam. Ethan's best friend since middle school. A quiet, polite, helpful boy. He was the kind of teenager any parent would trust, always offering to carry groceries or fix the Wi-Fi when it glitched. He started staying over more often after his mom took a night shift job. Ethan said Liam didn't like being alone, and I understood that. What I didn't understand, at least, not at first, was the way Liam looked at me when no one else was watching. It was subtle. A little too much eye contact. A glance held a second longer than it should have been. A smile that felt like it meant more than it should. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was reading too much into harmless gestures. But the feeling never left. One weekend, Ethan asked if Liam could sleep over again. I said yes without thinking. I always did. That Friday night, I grilled burgers for them, and they played games in Ethan's room while I cleaned up the kitchen. I passed Liam in the hallway that night. He was heading to the bathroom, shirtless, in loose gray joggers. He smiled at me. Not the usual polite smile. This one lingered, slow, deliberate. "Thanks for dinner, Mr. Dean," he said. "No problem," I replied, trying not to let my voice shake. But even after he disappeared into the bathroom, the image of him stayed burned in my mind. And that bothered me. Because I knew I shouldn't be thinking about him that way. I tried to stay away after that. I made excuses to leave the room when he was around. If they were watching a movie, I'd stay upstairs. If they were in the kitchen, I'd go to the garage. I thought distance would make it easier. But Liam made it hard to ignore him. One afternoon, he helped me in the backyard with some repairs. Ethan had gone out to get snacks, so it was just the two of us. Liam offered to hold the ladder while I replaced a loose gutter bracket. I climbed up, and I remember feeling his hand rest just a little too long on my back to steady me. When I came down, he handed me a bottle of water. "You work too hard," he said. "Let someone take care of you for a change." I laughed nervously. "That's not really how things work around here." He didn't push. Just nodded and looked away. But the message was loud and clear. He wasn't just talking about home repairs. That night, Ethan came into the kitchen and announced, "Liam's staying over again. We're pulling an all-nighter, gaming tournament." I hesitated for a second. My chest felt tight. But I nodded. "Yeah, sure. That's fine." What else was I supposed to say? I stayed up later than usual, watching a movie in the living room. I heard them laughing from Ethan's room, the sounds of video games and soda cans cracking open. Then, around midnight, the house got quiet. I was turning off the last lamp when I heard a soft shuffle of footsteps behind me. Liam. He looked like he'd just woken up from a nap, shirtless again, this time holding a thin blanket. "The air mattress deflated," he said quietly. "Ethan's out cold and snoring." I didn't want to wake him. My throat went dry. "So I was wondering if I could sleep here?" I should have said no. Every reasonable part of me was screaming it. But instead, I stepped aside and motioned toward the bed. "Just for the night," I said. Liam nodded without saying a word and stepped into my room like it was nothing new. He walked to the far side of the bed, laid down with his back to me, and pulled the blanket up to his shoulders. I turned off the bedside lamp. Darkness swallowed the room. But the silence, that was louder than anything. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not blinking, not breathing too loud. The space between us felt small, like the bed had shrunk. His breathing was slow, but not relaxed. It was deliberate. Measured. And then, his voice cut through the quiet. "You smell good." My heart jumped. It was soft, just a whisper. But I heard it. Every word. I didn't move. Didn't respond. I wasn't sure how to. "I didn't mean that in a weird way," he added after a moment. "Just, you remind me of something familiar. Something safe." Still, I said nothing. A few seconds later, I felt it. The lightest brush of his fingers against my wrist. Just a graze. Almost like he was checking if I was real. Or maybe, waiting to see how I'd react. I pulled my hand away, slowly but clearly. "Sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I forgot how small your bed is." I didn't reply. My pulse was racing now. My skin felt hot. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't accidental. And he knew it. So did I. We lay in silence again for what felt like an hour. I tried to calm my breathing. Tried to will myself into sleep. But I couldn't. Then he spoke again. "You know, you're the only adult who's ever made me feel like I mattered." I turned slightly, not facing him, just enough to acknowledge I was listening. "My dad took off when I was 10, he said. "He used to yell a lot. Hit me sometimes. My mom, she acted like none of it was happening." He paused. "And now, she's barely ever home. I spend more time in your house than my own." I swallowed hard. "I know this probably sounds stupid," he continued, "but sometimes. I wish I could just stay here forever." I didn't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered, almost as if reading my mind. I just needed to say it. I stayed facing the wall. I could feel him behind me, his presence heavier than ever. That invisible line that separates comfort from tension. It had just been crossed. But he wasn't done. "I know I'm not supposed to think about you that way," he said. "But I do." My throat tightened. I closed my eyes, hoping, praying, he'd stop. "I think about it all the time." Another pause. "I just don't know what to do with it anymore." I forced a breath out. "You should get some sleep, Liam," I finally said, my voice low and tight. He didn't argue. He didn't say another word. I listened as he shifted under the covers, turned away again. His breathing slowed, became softer. Eventually, I got up and went to the bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I looked, ashamed. Worn. What had I allowed? It wasn't just his fault. It wasn't just mine. It was this blurred space we had created without ever speaking it aloud. And now, there was no going back. I returned to the room, lay down again, this time barely touching the mattress. The sun wasn't far off now. And all I could think was, how do I fix this? How do I make sure nothing like this ever happens again? But deep down, I also knew. A part of me didn't want to forget it. If only I had known what was coming next, I would have never let this happen. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, eyes heavy, chest tight. I hadn't really slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed his words from the night before. "You smell good. I think about it all the time. You make me feel like I matter." I quietly left the room, careful not to wake Liam. The house was silent except for the occasional creak in the floorboards. I brewed a pot of coffee, trying to find comfort in the routine. By the time the sun crept through the blinds, I was halfway through my second cup when I heard footsteps. Liam. He walked into the kitchen like it was any normal morning, hair messy, eyes sleepy, shirtless again. The same blanket from last night was draped loosely over his shoulders. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," I replied, avoiding his eyes. He poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. The silence was heavy, thick enough to cut through. Then he broke it. "I didn't sleep much," he said. I kept my gaze on the coffee pot. "Yeah, me neither." A pause. Then, did I cross a line last night? That question hung in the air like smoke. I turned, finally meeting his eyes. "I think, we both know you did." His expression didn't change. "Do you want me to leave?" "No," I said too quickly. Then caught myself. "I mean, not yet. Let's just not talk about it right now. Ethan will be up soon." He nodded and grabbed a piece of fruit from the bowl on the table. He peeled it slowly, his movements calm, too calm. Like he'd been here before, like this wasn't his first emotional mess. "I don't do this to make things difficult," he said quietly. I feel things. Too much, maybe." I didn't respond. What could I say to that? Later that afternoon, Ethan left to meet a few friends for lunch. I was hoping Liam would go with him, but instead, he stayed behind. I was in the garage sorting through storage boxes when I heard the door open. "I can help," he offered, already walking over. "I've got it," I said. He didn't listen. He crouched beside me and started organizing old tools. We worked in silence until he spoke again. "You used to be married, right?" I glanced over. "Yeah. For almost 10 years. What happened?" "We grew apart. She wanted something else. Someone else." He nodded. "I don't think I've ever seen you with anyone. I'm not really looking." "Maybe you're afraid," he said. I froze. Afraid? Of letting someone in again. His words hit harder than I expected. Because he wasn't wrong. "I think we all get scared," I said after a moment. "But fear isn't an excuse to make bad decisions." He looked at me. "Is that what you think I am? A bad decision?" "No. I think you're confused. And I don't want to take advantage of that." He didn't look away. "You're not." I got up, needing space, but he followed. "I'm not a child, Dean," he said. "I may be young, but I know what I'm feeling. This isn't about age, Liam. It's about boundaries." He stepped closer. "Then tell me where they are. Because I can't see them anymore." I backed away slightly, heart pounding. "Don't. I'm just asking," he whispered. "Do you feel it too?" Silence. And that silence said everything. He didn't press further. Instead, he walked away, back into the house. And I stood there, surrounded by boxes and tools, like a man trying to fix a leak with the wrong wrench. Later that evening, he sat on the back porch. The sky was purple, fading into that golden hour haze. I stepped out, unsure what I was doing. "You always sit out here alone?" he asked without turning. "Sometimes. When I need to breathe." "I like it here," he said. "It feels honest." I sat beside him, keeping a healthy distance. The air was cool, calm, and yet my chest felt anything but. "I used to think love was loud," he said suddenly. "That it had to be all-consuming and chaotic. But being around you, it's different. Quiet. Safe." I didn't look at him. "You're romanticizing something that isn't real." "Isn't it?" he asked, finally turning to face me. "Tell me this doesn't feel real." I didn't answer. Because I didn't know how. He reached out and placed his hand on mine. This time, I didn't pull away. It was warm. Steady. His fingers laced between mine like they belonged there. "I won't do anything you don't want," he whispered. "But I need you to be honest with me." I finally looked at him. "I'm trying to do the right thing," I said. "Even when it doesn't feel right." "I know," he whispered. And then he leaned his head on my shoulder. We stayed like that for a while, not speaking. Just breathing. The sky turned darker. Crickets filled the silence. I should have moved. I should have broken the moment. But I didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. That was the moment I should have walked away. But the next few days passed in silence, not awkward, not distant, just cautious. We avoided being alone in the same room too long. We talked in short exchanges. Ethan, of course, was oblivious to the undercurrent that had taken over the house. But that quiet wasn't peace. It was pressure. Pressure building. Waiting for a place to escape. Then came the storm. The weather forecast called it the biggest rainfall of the season. Ethan decided to spend the weekend with his cousins a few towns over. I had no idea Liam was still planning to stay until I heard the knock at the door Friday night. He stood there, soaked from the downpour, hoodie clinging to his skin, hair matted against his forehead. "You didn't text me," I said, surprised. "I figured you'd be home," he replied. He stepped in without waiting for an invitation, kicked off his shoes, and looked around the living room like it belonged to him. "It's cold." I nodded, grabbing a towel and handing it to him. He dried off, peeled the hoodie from his torso, revealing a soaked white t-shirt underneath. His skin shivered beneath the fabric. "Do you want something warm?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked at me. And in that look, everything that hadn't been said, everything we'd been holding back, rose to the surface. "I tried to stay away," he whispered. "I really did. Liam. No. Please, just let me say this." I swallowed hard. "I don't care if it's wrong," he said. "I don't care if it's messy, or complicated, or if we both regret it tomorrow. I just want to feel something that isn't cold." He took a step forward. "I think about you all the time. The way you move, the way you talk, the way you laugh when you think no one's watching." He was close now, too close. I'm not trying to play a game. I'm not confused. I'm here. And I want you. I closed my eyes. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. You're Ethan's friend. And you're not just his dad. You're a man. A person. With feelings. With needs. Liam, you're the first person who ever made me feel like I wasn't disposable. There was a moment, just one, where I could have stopped it. I could have walked out of the room, told him to leave, erased the last few weeks with a firm line in the sand. But I didn't. I stepped back, and he followed. I turned away, and he reached for my hand. And when I didn't pull back, he closed the distance between us. I'm not afraid, he said. I was. But not of him. Of myself. He leaned in slowly, his breath warm against my cheek. His fingers slid up my arm. My chest was tight. My thoughts were chaos. But my body wasn't resisting. Then it happened. He kissed me. Soft. Uncertain at first. Like he was asking permission. And I gave it. I didn't know when I started kissing him back. All I remember is the way the room fell silent. No rain, no wind, no guilt, no noise. Just the heartbeat between our mouths. When we pulled apart, he didn't speak. Neither did I. He rested his forehead against mine. You don't have to say anything. I just needed to know what it felt like. I closed my eyes. My hands were trembling. I should go, he said suddenly. And just like that, he stepped back, grabbed his hoodie, and walked toward the door. I didn't stop him. He left without another word. The storm swallowed him as if he'd never been there. I stood frozen, heart pounding, mouth dry. What had I done? I paced the house for hours that night, thinking he might come back, thinking I should go after him, thinking I should call Ethan and say, what? That I'd crossed the most sacred line a father could? But I didn't move. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the coffee pot. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that hums with regret. At around 10 a.m., I heard a knock. I jumped up, heart pounding. It wasn't Liam. It was Ethan. He walked in, cheerful, casual. Hey, Dad. You okay? I nodded too quickly. Yeah. Just tired. He didn't notice. He dropped his bag and pulled out his phone. Liam didn't answer my texts. Was he here? I lied. No. Haven't seen him. He frowned but didn't press. Weird. The rest of the day passed in limbo. Every corner of the house held a memory of that night. Every glance in the mirror made me flinch. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Liam, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kissed you. But I don't regret it. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed a response. And deleted it. I didn't know what I was anymore, father, mistake, victim, predator. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted. And it wasn't going back. I never saw it coming. But now, there was no turning back. A full week passed. 7 days of silence. 7 days of pretending everything was normal, making breakfast for Ethan, cleaning the house, working late just to avoid my own thoughts. But nothing felt the same. I kept expecting a knock on the door, a message, a confrontation. But there was nothing. Liam had vanished. Ethan didn't bring him up again, and I didn't dare ask. I told myself it was better this way. That the silence meant safety. That we could bury it all and never look back. But late at night, when the house was still, I'd sit on the porch with a coffee I never drank and think about that kiss. Not just the kiss, the way it made me feel seen. Exposed. Wanted. Terrified. Then, a few days later, a letter arrived. It was handwritten. Folded neatly into thirds. No return address. Just my name. Dean. I didn't disappear to punish you. I disappeared because I needed to understand if that night meant something real, or if it was just me clinging to someone who finally saw me. I've spent my whole life waiting for someone to stay. And for a moment, I thought you might. But maybe I was wrong to hope for that. If you want me to never come back, say nothing. I'll respect that. But if there's even a part of you that wants to see me again, I'll be at the lake house. The one Ethan mentioned that day. You don't owe me anything. But I needed to leave you with the choice. L. I read the letter 5 times. Every word tore through me. Because I knew what I wanted to do. And I also knew what I should do. That night, I sat on the porch again. Coffee still untouched. Eyes scanning the dark trees beyond our backyard like they could offer answers. I thought of Ethan. Of the years I'd spent building a life around him. Protecting him. Providing. Being a father first, a man second. But for the first time, the man was tired. Lonely. And part of him, maybe the wrong part, ached to feel something again. The next morning, I packed a bag. I didn't leave a note. Didn't say goodbye. I just drove. The lake was quiet. Gray clouds mirrored in the still water. The cabin sat at the edge of the trees, small and old, but peaceful. I walked to the front door and raised my hand to knock. My fist hovered there, frozen in time. Then the door opened from the inside. Liam stood there. His eyes met mine. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. Neither did I. But I stepped inside. And I stepped inside, not knowing what that choice would cost me. Some lines, once crossed, can never be erased. But sometimes, the heart doesn't ask for permission. It just walks through the door. He stepped inside. And neither of them looked back. What would you have done in Dean's place? Was it love or loneliness? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story made your heart race, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because the next story might be even harder to walk away from.